Good morning. Good morning, everyone. One of the topics which has been discussed to a certain extent throughout last year and this year is hate speech. This is particularly evident and it has become even more important due to the pandemic, where many people definitely had to use their laptops and their computers, and they have been online. And this issue, we have become maybe more aware because digital devices and the online environment have escalated this issue. And that's why today we are delivering this debate between us, this session, which we feel it's one of the topics which are very relevant in schools, and we have been requested, in fact, for a number of times by a number of head of schools to address this issue. May I introduce Ms. Lucienne Zammit, Education Officer for Ethics within the Directorate for Learning and Assessment Programs. Ms. Lucienne, and also Omar, we share the same name, who work in the Migrant Learning Unit. Thank you for joining us at the Digital Literacy Center within the Directorate for Digital Literacy. And we're very pleased to collaborate together because such an important issue, it has to be addressed collectively. Maybe I'm going to chair this session, and maybe I will ask you, each of you maybe, what do you understand by hate speech? What is hate speech? Oh my.
Hate speech is the sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hate speech is a form, is discourse, verbal and written, that attacks the different particularities of the individual, such as nationality, sexual orientation, gender, skin color, language, citizenship. It's a kind of speech that creates hate and stereotypes on that particular person.
For me, hate speech is abusive. Hate speech is abusive or threatening speech or writing against with a particular group, especially on their basis of race, religion, or sexual orientation. It can also be not verbal, also written and online, which is, I think, it is virtual violence.
Yes, I agree. Basically, it's basically when you insult someone or incite hatred against someone based on the particular characteristics which they mentioned, just such as language, nationality, religion, gender, and so on.
Exactly. Before we proceed, please allow me to inform everyone that this session is being recorded. It's being streamed via MS Teams. Of course, everyone is noticed via MS Teams that it's being recorded, but we honor, of course, what we preach, and we inform everyone that it's being recorded. So everyone is free. Definitely, we have time later on so that you may ask any questions. So feel free to raise hands, and even throughout the discussion, you may raise hands and also ask any questions. The session is going to be recorded, and most probably it will be also available on our platforms. Omar and Lucine, you work in Migrant Learning Unit. Maybe a difficult question for maybe, have you experienced hate speech yourself? I mean, not necessarily yourself, but from your experience.
Well, we work with many nationalities in our educational system. We have nationalities from all over the world, practically. So hate speech that is being fermented on social media on certain nationalities, religions, skin color, ethnic groups, obviously impacts society in general. That leaves an effect on adults, which then it trickles down to children. So, yes, we encounter students who are foreigners who get bullied because of hate speech, because since hate speech creates certain ideas, for example, that all people, I encountered this personally, that all people coming from Syria are terrorists because there was the Islamic State there. So one time a boy came crying to me that other students are calling him terrorist just because he is of a Syrian nationality. And obviously it hurts me because of all people, the people escaping the terrorists are not the terrorists themselves. But yes, hate speech is very dangerous. For example, even the stereotype with the Chinese and COVID, for example, we've had politicians claiming that COVID-19 is the China virus. It's not COVID-19, you know, and it creates a certain stereotype on Chinese people, for example, that it is like the normal people on the ground gave us the COVID, and the Chinese students feel very, you know, feel very ashamed that people instigate such speech against them. And we encounter these during our daily work with all the nationalities. I can't give an example. I can't start by saying about religions, what we hear about religions, for example, you know, that all Muslims are terrorists, for example. And you have to combat every day these examples, you know, you try to reason out with children, and you try to make a point, even through such initiatives, that the message is sent across, that how stereotyping creates a very dangerous situation in everyday life of our students.
Maybe have anything to share as well?
Especially when nowadays they are using Microsoft Teams after pandemic. As a community liaison worker, when we are contacting to the families, we are talking to them. We are also explaining the policies, how they can use and how they can protect it also.
There is a fine line between freedom of speech and hate speech. This came out even several years ago when there was a particular magazine which issued sort of offending image. Some people argue that it's fine sort of to offend. To what extent do you think that we can limit hate speech without violating human rights?
I think stopping people from expressing their opinions just because you may think it's hate speech is very dangerous for our democracy, because it's very important that we have conflicting ideas, because that's where we grow and where we understand each other. It's fine to disagree with one's religion. So if there is something that, for example, Muslims believe and I disagree with, it's okay that I express myself. Listen, I disagree with this belief. I don't believe this because I believe something else. That is hate speech. But then if you create a narrative where it's untrue, such as, for example, anyone who is Muslim is someone who deals with bombs, and we've had people who created this narrative, that is creating hate speech against a group of people, because not only a 0.001% who are not actually Muslims, but they claim to be, or they claim to do something in the name of Islam, that do terrorist attacks. But you cannot justify freedom of speech by trumping on someone else's freedoms. Freedom of speech is very important because it's one of the basics of democracy. But we have to be careful that we do not use the excuse of freedom of speech to create these far-right narratives that will then lead to very bad consequences, such as extremisms and terrorist attacks and many of these.
Maybe.
Yes, I think it all depends on the language that you use and the intention behind it. Because, you know, saying I don't agree with this is one thing. Saying that someone who does this is evil, it's bad, whatever, that is different. So hate speech, the difference between hate speech and the freedom of speech lies in the language that you use. So we have to be very careful with how we use language, basically.
Okay. Of course, there are consequences for hate speech. I mean, it's not right, it's not fine, it's not okay. And there are laws which protect us. What do you think? So my question is, if we have these laws in place, does that mean that we're doing fine? What's maybe missing? What do we need? Even maybe for us as educators and as a society in general.
I believe that us as educators, we need to learn to recognize hate speech, especially when it is being derived within students. We have laws. Our parliament has passed laws. They are in effect. My personal opinion is that they need to be even harsher, because the way they are at the moment, it seems that they are not enough deterrent to people. I am very active on social media, on all social media, and the amount of hate speech that gets unreported is unbelievable.
True.
If police, I state this, that if police investigate all the hate speech that is being written at the moment, the police department can stop and works only on that. For example, on TikTok, which is very frequented by our students, the amount of hate speech is unbelievable. And why? Because people believe they can act with impunity, because there is not enough enforcement being done even to report hate speech. It's quite a complicated system. You have to take a screenshot, you have to send it, you have, if the comment is deleted, it becomes a problem. I think the way that we report hate speech needs to be facilitated a lot. And apart from that, the punishment or the effect of reporting hate speech to the court needs to be according to the crime, not you end up going through all the trauma to go to court. You miss a day of work to go and to court, all the months, all the amount of time, and then you get a €50 fine, or you get a reprimand. You know, you have to take hate speech really seriously, because hate speech has consequences. Most of the time, terrorist attacks are done by people who are excluded by society, and hate speech excludes people, it stereotypes people, puts them in little boxes, and we need to make sure that hate speech is not being fermented, because the society in general suffers when there is hate speech. We might not see it at the moment, but the consequences of hate speech can lead to very, very bad consequences for many other people.
Also, it is better that at school we will start to educate students and also do some seminars with their parents, that they can also educate their children to be safe, not to respect others, and not to be bold, not to recognize their borders. It is better that everyone will recognize their borders, and such kind of things will not happen. But
yes, schools have basically two roles. They have the role of education. We need to educate students. We need to educate students about hate speech, explain what hate speech is, explain why it is wrong. And schools also have a safeguarding role, because teachers and guidance teachers are usually the ones who are very close to students. So those will be the ones who are going to pick up on issues first. So if someone is being targeted by hate speech, they might not talk to their parents, they might talk to their friend or to their guidance teacher or to their teacher. So even teachers, as Omar and Lucina said, they have to know what hate speech is. They have to know what the laws are, how to report hate speech, what the issues are. So we need a lot of general awareness in schools and outside of schools.
May I also add that, because it's part of my role, in fact, as well, that it's the importance, it's one of the competences, digital competences as well, that is required today, that one should maybe know how to take a screenshot, also how to recognize what is hate speech online. Not everything which is being online, of course, it's true. I'm stating quite the obvious maybe, but this is from this where everything starts from. So these are very important today. But since we are discussing also the schools, maybe it's very important also to distinguish with cyberbullying, bullying in general as well. Both are wrong. Let's start with, but what is the difference between them? Because as we know, all of us, we received issues from schools about both cyberbullying and also hate speech. What is the difference between them? And why is it important to make this difference?
Okay, so basically, of course, both are wrong. Both are a kind of abuse. The difference lies in what you are targeting. Okay, so hate speech, as we said before, depends on particular characteristics. So, okay, to give a practical example, if I am insulting you based on your intelligence, okay, calling you stupid or whatever, that is bullying. Or if it happens online, it's cyberbullying. Mm-hmm. But if I am insulting you based on your religion, culture, whatever, like gender, then that is hate speech because I am attacking your particular characteristics, especially if you come from a minority background. So there's a very fine line. They are both abusive, they are both morally wrong and against the law. Now that cyberbullying is becoming entrenched in law, like there's going to be a specific crime attached to it. So they're both wrong, but they are slightly different.
We have to distinguish between going after the person and going after the identity of the person. So if you disagree with me because you don't like Omar, that's fine. But if you disagree with me because my father is from Syria, I have a different religion, that is not based, your opinion is not based on my personal experience, but my identity. And that is also very wrong. And the difference between cyberbullying and hate speech is that bullying, hate speech is one form of bullying. So bullying can be managed if there is physical abuse, that is bullying, but it's not hate speech. So hate speech is one form of bullying, which is through discourse, verbal or written, that psychologically affects the other.
Maybe Lucien and Omar, maybe we can add to this. So in this case, how can one report hate speech? Because maybe we can give some tips.
There is an online platform where within the police department where they ask you to send information and screenshots, and they would proceed to court through their reporting system and their lawyers. Maybe following this discussion, we can leave a link in the comment section where everyone can access, and there is Victim Support Malta also, which are very supportive of people who want to report hate. There is a lot of support. I am very pleased with the psychological and social support that there is when it comes to hate speech. I believe we need to be a bit more effective and less bureaucratic when we report hate speech, so that the idea of making it a deterrent for people not to ferment hate speech would be more effective.
Lucien, and maybe everyone can intervene anyway. How can these be addressed from a school level, at a school level? How can hate speech be addressed?
So, as I said earlier, you can do it on two fronts: education, okay, teaching About hate speech, for example, I am the education officer for ethics. In ethics, we do a lot of this work. First of all, we focus on values. So we teach children how to empathize with others, how to respect others, how to live with others who are different. Okay, so basically that is the basis of ethics. We talk about human rights, all this kind of, so that's the basis. But then we also talk about hate speech in general, what constitutes hate speech, why it is wrong, why we shouldn't participate in it, what to do if we do come across it. Okay, and all this is in the context of responsible online behavior, because as we said, sometimes it's not clear cut. Okay, so we need to teach children and youths that they need to be responsible online, both online and offline, because sometimes they have this idea that what happens online is okay. Okay, it's not witnessed by others. So anyway, so that is something that we do a lot in ethics. I'm sure that it's done a lot of other subjects, not just ethics, but in ethics we specifically focus on hate speech. We have a new syllabus which really focuses on that. The other role is safeguarding students. So teachers, as I said before, and guidance teachers and the senior leadership team have specific policies to safeguard their students. So if a student is being harassed online, targeted, he or she can go to the school authorities, the senior leadership team, the guidance teacher, and report this. Okay, because they, of course, then they can follow it up.
It's good to learn. I mean, I was aware of it, but that everyone knows that, to find out that it's being taught, particularly in ethics and other subjects. Of course, it's as part of the curriculum because it's such an important issue, and it cannot be ignored. Let's start with. May I also add that there are several tools that educators can use, such as the Selma toolkit, which is particularly focused on that. And right now, there's a MOOC, which is an open course, which is free for all, which is free, where it's not yet ready, but educators may start registering for it. It's called Facts for All. It's called Facts for All. It's not particular about hate speech, but it's about misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. So it's good to know that there's this also course which is open. It's part of the European SchoolNet. Registrations are open now, and educators may register for this course as well. So this leads me to we are almost to the end of this debate, but the Facts for All course leads me to the issue of misinformation and disinformation. May I add that misinformation is when there are incorrect or misleading information, not necessarily intentionally, but for example, a picture which is not right and is being shared. Some people share it without knowing actually. And disinformation is when one deliberately spreads some wrong information, so to say, to influence the public opinion. Maybe we can give several examples of this. I mean, there were several, but I think Omar has mentioned, in fact, a few where we can share, for example, some disinformation just to influence the public opinion that a particular group of people maybe are damaging the country, they are ruining the country, and so on.
And this is why schools have an important role to play, because I believe that if schools tend to be more inclusive when it comes to different cultures and different religions, and we often think that we are doing a very good thing because we celebrate Multicultural Day once a year. And although it's a good where we share food and we share, the flags, where it's a good initiative, but The reality is that school is multicultural every day, and we have to make sure that we include all different cultures and all different religions, and we discuss them, because that is where hate speech is created, because it's based on stereotypes, and stereotypes are broken with discussions, with informed discussions. So as schools, we have a role, a duty to first of all include everyone, because everyone is entitled to the same educational entitlement, coming where the student is coming. And it works out, because if you learn, for example, let me stay with the same example, that no, not all Muslims are terrorists. The boy sitting next to me or the girl sitting next to me is just as normal as I am. If you learn that every day in your school, you wouldn't be comfortable to ferment the stereotype and hate speech. So it becomes very easy to break down hate speech by educating, because hate speech, in my opinion, is a lack of education, because stereotype is also a lack of, it's an assumption of someone or something or a group of people that is not true. It may be a minority, a percentage, but it's not true. And even as professionals, we tend to fall in the trap of stereotyping. I've had several experiences around Europe mostly, where I used to think something of that particular group of people, even trivial things. And then you encounter those people, you discuss with them, and you learn that no, it's not true. Society taught me that stereotype, but it's not. For example, I had this idea of Germans being always on time, but it's not true, because when you encounter Germans youths, they're like us. But you need to take action to break down such stereotypes, such as debates, discussions. You meet, you encounter the other, you dialogue, and schools have an opportunity, and where through ethics, for example, and through other initiatives that the school can create, even involving parents from the migrant communities, for example, involving migrant parents, because they lack in parents' councils. How many migrant parents are in parent councils in schools? I did my master's research on this subject. That's why I am a bit, emotional on it. Yes, because we lack. And then I feel very saddened that on Microsoft Teams, for example, and on TikTok and on Instagram, I encounter such discourse being written and said by students, because I think that we have a golden opportunity where we can work and help the students, and we need to do a bit more.
We have to also add that these digital tools may be escalated rather. The problem was still being there.
Yes,
and maybe it's being brought more to the surface.
As we said in our previous meeting, that we did not have experience with, for example, using Microsoft Teams as much with students, because COVID came to us suddenly. Before, Microsoft Teams wasn't used as much as it is used now with students. So we are still learning how to deal with it. For example, I know that students are opening, for example, chat groups on Microsoft Teams between them that is not related directly to school, but it's related to being friends.
Definitely.
So we need to know these things, and learn how to deal with them in a way that we keep the students' trust, but on the other hand, we make sure that it is a safe environment.
Omar, you have mentioned a very important point, which I think we can delve upon a bit more about the importance of living together. But may I also add that part of our directorate, we have eTwinning. For example, eTwinning is very important because it enables us to share without any differences between countries, race and so on. And living together is not sometimes natural. Sometimes we have to learn how to live together, unfortunately. Considering the different also ethnic groups and so on, even within the European continent, as we can see, having such an important platform, that's why we promote it and encouraging it. It's not just about using the digital tools, but I think maybe even as an education officer for digital literacy, but I think it's even more important about enabling people to work together, to collaborate together. And it's something awesome. if you maybe anything have to
I was
add
just
something?
going to talk about a survey which I think was conducted in 2018, 2019, definitely before the COVID pandemic. It found that 18% of Maltese children were exposed to hate speech online at least once a month. Now, this was before they started using Teams for School, before the pandemic. So, of course, we have no data about Maltese children and how they are, what's happening now. But of course, you know, I am sure that this has escalated. So we can't assume that our children are not exposed to this because our children live a parallel life. Sometimes as parents and as educators, we don't even know what they are experiencing online because they are, as I said, they are exposed to things which we might not even be aware of. As Omar said, they're exposed to TikTok, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. Okay? They are online. They are living their lives online. Okay, so we need to be aware of what's going on, and we need to equip them with the right tools.
And such platforms are usually they act as predators. For example, TikTok, you would find a video that you think there's nothing wrong with, and then you would find a link attached to the TikTok, and suddenly you're on a pornographic website. So we have to be very careful to what our children are being exposed to, because you would never know. And there are some tips that one can give, can help the children with. For example, not staying on their digital devices by themselves in their rooms, because you have no control. If you want to stay on your digital device, you stay in the common area of the household, where you can, you know,
parents can control.
The parents can view what the child is looking, because once the child goes into the world of the internet by himself, it's
dangerous.
And one important note that I wanted to add, and it also works with me personally, the importance of building a relationship of trust with our as parents, building a relationship of trust, because once you lose that trust with your children, they go underground, they go behind your back, and it's a very, very dangerous place to be, the internet, because there are many predators, many bad people who are waiting there to prey on our students. So we have to be very, very careful.
To hack, and they are finding those students, making groups, attacking them, cyberbullying, then bullying, then hate speech.
They prey on the vulnerable, basically. So some people say that you wouldn't trust your child in the middle of New York City all by himself, would you? So basically, that's what we're doing when we're letting them online all by themselves. Now, of course, you cannot stop them from going online, but we need to at least put some safeguards in place and teach them about how to stay safe.
Sometimes because they are not even realizing that what we are sharing among of Microsoft team, among of our friends in our chat group, for example, school students, they are not realizing that it can be very harmful for the other one, for the others. They are not realizing. No. This is why we need to educate them more.
No,
they
we
need
have to be
aware more.
Sometimes it's not funny because maybe young people may think it's funny to joke about someone, but sometimes it's not funny. You know, sometimes it is in fact hate speech. So
that's why I said freedom of speech and hate speech. You know, you have to be very careful because there is a joke and there is a joke. And also, as schools, we have to make sure that we try to educate on issues that are there, such as, for example, the different sexual orientations, because it's defined in the law of hate speech, that, you know, speaking and throwing these narratives against particular sexual orientations, for example, that you don't like, is also hate speech. So we have to educate, because one would say, oh, we didn't know. That's why as schools, we need to make sure that we have specific specific discussions and debates, such as what ethics is doing with our children, but we need to work on having ethics more in our schools because it's a very, very relevant subject. And it will help safeguard the interests of our children because, as we say, we defend maybe one particular subject may not affect your child today, but tomorrow they will come after your child, and if you did not defend your child in the first place, it will happen to your child, and we'll say, I didn't do nothing in the first place. So we have to defend our children from all fronts. We have to educate them. The more they know, the better.
Because they will know from environment, and it can be harmful. Because they didn't know about it from the parents, and from environment, you don't know how they will give that information to the children.
Yes, as Omar said before, hate speech eventually will lead to extremism. Now, extremism affects everyone. It affects the whole country. So no one is immune. Okay, don't assume that because your religion, your nationality is not protected, you're not in a minority, you will not be affected by this. Eventually, hate speech affects everyone, as Omar said.
And when we say extremism, it's not only bombing and knife attacks. We're saying suicides, for example. That's also a form of extremism that hate speech leads. So we've had internationally, we've had young people who committed suicide because of constant hate speech and bullying through online means. Mm-hmm. So it's a very dangerous situation if we let hate speech ferment. That's why we have to keep an eye on the digital tools that our students, and we have to update following the increase of usage of online means because of COVID, to make sure that we emphasize the point where something that is said is wrong and something that is said is correct.
This is very important, I think, what you're saying, because hate speech does not lead only to, such as the experience that we had before Second World War, for example, but these personal experiences are as tragic. I mean, having someone, as you have said, I mean, even one individual.
Yeah, all cyberbullying is wrong. Hate speech is one form. We have to monitor all type of cyberbullying, but since the subject today is hate speech, we're focusing on hate speech. But for example, even with regards to the ideal body, these type of discourse lead, for example, to conditions such as bulimia, anorexia. So we have to be very attentive that when we see these type, we know how to stop it in the right way, because also our approach has to be very careful, because we have to make sure that we are very empathic, because usually when someone is bullied, when someone is fermenting hate speech, usually they need help themselves from experience, because they are witnessing a personal situation and they tend to vent out by hating on someone else. So we have to, take a very empathic approach to try and calm down the situation and educate and inform.
I think we need to think about the very traditional value, the value of kindness. We need to be kind with each other, both online and offline. So we need to teach our children to be kinder. We need to be kinder ourselves towards others. Okay, so I always tell my children, think before you post something. Is this kind? What am I doing here? Am I attacking someone or am I helping someone? So it's a very fundamental value, kindness. We don't seem to talk about it much anymore. Okay? We talk about respect, we talk about other things. But fundamentally, we are teaching our children to be kind towards others.
I think these final remarks, concluding remarks from of us are very important, because it's our role, some practical tips as well, what we can do as educators. Yes. We know the potential dangers of hate speech, and it's also true that maybe they are fueled by populism as well. it fuels populism, fuels hate speech as well, and so there is high risk, and we know about this threat in Europe. It's not something of the past, as we know. It's something that is continuously being brought to the surface. However, what we're discussing are some also advice. I mean, we are educators. As educators, we have this role as well. I mean, we have to be careful what's happening around us. We are part of the world. We are not living in a vacuum. But sometimes there's little that we can do. But I mean, on a political level, for example. However, from an educational point of view, we have our role as educators. It's very important. It's huge. I mean, we can change because and we can bring this change in lives. I'm not sure whether you have some concluding further remarks, maybe.
No, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. I think it's an important initiative. I hope there are more of these, so that we can reach more educators, more students, and more families. Because I believe that if we go through the students, they can inform their parents, and we can have this ripple effect, which will lead to better education and a more coherent society.
I would like to thank you for this fruitful session. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar.
Yes, I would like to thank you as well, Migrant Learning Unit, and Lucienne from Education Officer of Ethics, for joining us. It was an interesting session, I think, and hopefully everyone who will enjoy it, and of course will maybe take some actions with regards to addressing this important issue. We know that it's an important issue, but maybe we cannot ignore it. I mean, we're maybe immersed in what we're doing, in our subjects and so on, with our families as parents and so on, but maybe sometimes we don't realize how important is it. And it's important that maybe I also read that in 11th February, we celebrated Safer Internet Day. And so during this month, we raised some awareness about some important issues as well with regards to internet safety. Internet was mentioned quite a lot during this debate. I thank you everyone who joined us, and stay safe.